live this life that I've created for myself is hell. Hell exists. It's real. I know that.
You had no right. You had no right to decide when she should die.
What drives a parent to commit the unthinkable? In the quiet city of Syracuse, New York, this haunting question would shake a community to its core when a father's toxic jealousy led to an act so heinous it defied comprehension. The story of Maddox Lawrence, a 21-month-old cancer survivor whose radiant spirit touched countless lives, would become a chilling testament to how darkness can consume even the most sacred bonds of family. In February 2016, the unimaginable occurred. Ryan Lawrence, a 25-year-old father, orchestrated the brutal murder of his own daughter, not in a moment of blind rage, but through a series of calculated decisions driven by an obsessive jealousy that had festered within him for months. The very child who had inspired countless hearts with her brave battle against cancer would fall victim to the one person meant to be her ultimate protector. The details of this crime would unravel like a nightmare, each revelation more disturbing than the last. A baseball bat wielded by paternal hands, a makeshift fire pit burning through the night, and cinder blocks sinking evidence into murky waters, all carefully planned and executed by a father whose mind had twisted love into something unrecognizable. Welcome to True Crime Stories Archive, your gateway to the chilling world of real-life horror. Today, we delve into a case that forces us to confront the darkest possibilities lurking within family bonds, a story that proves sometimes the greatest threats come from those closest to us. If you're new here, make sure to subscribe to join our community of true crime enthusiasts as we explore cases that challenge our understanding of human nature. To comprehend the full scope of this tragedy, we must first step back to examine the Lawrence family before darkness descended. Maddox Lawrence entered the world as a beacon of joy, her arrival celebrated by parents who appeared, on the surface, to embody the picture of domestic happiness. Ryan Lawrence and his wife Morgan had built what seemed to be an ordinary life in Syracuse, their dreams centered around raising their daughter in a loving home. But fate had other plans for this young family. At just 9 months old, Maddox faced a devastating diagnosis that would alter the course of their lives forever: retinoblastoma, a rare and aggressive form of eye cancer that threatened to extinguish her bright future before it had truly begun. The diagnosis thrust the Lawrence family into a whirlwind of hospital visits, medical procedures, and uncertainty. Throughout her battle with cancer, Maddox displayed a resilience that seemed almost supernatural in one so young. Despite the grueling treatments and endless medical procedures, her spirit remained unbroken. Her tiny face, though marked by the struggles of her condition, never lost its ability to light up a room with the most infectious of smiles. The local community, moved by her fight against such overwhelming odds, rallied around the family, offering support, prayers, and assistance in any way they could. Morgan Lawrence transformed into an unwavering pillar of strength, dedicating every waking moment to her daughter's recovery. She became Maddox's fiercest advocate, navigating the complex medical landscape with determination that inspired everyone around her. The mother-daughter bond grew stronger with each passing day, their story touching hearts throughout Syracuse and beyond. But while Morgan found purpose in their daughter's battle, Ryan Lawrence's response to the situation took a drastically different turn. What began as subtle signs of withdrawal slowly morphed into something far more sinister. The attention and admiration Maddox received for her bravery in facing cancer, attention that should have filled any father with pride, instead planted seeds of resentment in Ryan's mind. As Maddox's story gained traction in local media, with fundraisers organized in her name and social media flooding with messages of support, Ryan's internal struggle intensified. The narrative of the brave little girl fighting cancer and her devoted mother overshadowed him completely, at least in his deteriorating mental state. His role as a father, which should have been a source of strength and purpose, became tainted by an inexplicable jealousy that grew more toxic with each passing day. The community's celebration of Maddox's eventual remission in late 2015 should have marked the beginning of a joyful new chapter for the Lawrence family. Instead, it became the catalyst for Ryan's descent into an unfathomable darkness. The continued attention his daughter received for surviving her ordeal only served to deepen his resentment. While the world saw a miracle, Ryan saw only his own perceived insignificance magnified. Those close to the family would later recall subtle warning signs, Ryan's increasingly frequent comments about how Maddox's illness had consumed their lives, his growing detachment from family activities, and an underlying bitterness that seeped into casual conversations. Yet none could have predicted the horrifying culmination of his psychological decline. The morning of February 20th, 2016, dawned like any other in Syracuse. Morgan Lawrence left for work, exchanging what would tragically become her final goodbye with her precious daughter. There was nothing in Ryan's demeanor that morning to suggest the horrors he had methodically planned, nothing to warn Morgan that her world was about to shatter beyond repair. The true nightmare began to unfold that evening when Morgan returned home to find an unnaturally silent house. The absence of her daughter's cheerful babbling and her husband's presence created an immediate sense of unease. Her attempts to reach Ryan by phone went straight to voicemail, each unanswered call amplifying her growing panic. Hours ticked by with no word, no explanation, no sign of where her family might be. As darkness fell over Syracuse, Morgan made the decision that would officially begin the search for her missing loved ones. Her call to local authorities set in motion a community-wide effort to locate the father and daughter. Missing person flyers featuring Maddox's radiant smile and Ryan's photographs soon plastered every street corner, while social media channels exploded with shares and pleas for information. But Ryan Lawrence had already executed his meticulously crafted plan, driven by a jealousy so profound it had corrupted the fundamental bond between father and child. What he did that afternoon would soon send shockwaves through not just Syracuse, but the entire nation, leaving people struggling to comprehend how a father could commit such an unspeakable act. The first breakthrough in the case came when surveillance cameras captured Ryan withdrawing money from an ATM in Baldwinsville, a small village roughly 15 miles from Syracuse. The footage showed him alone, with no sign of Maddox. This sighting confirmed investigators' growing fears that this was far more than a simple case of a father taking his daughter without notice. On February 22nd, following a tip from a vigilant resident, law enforcement located Ryan in Baldwinsville. His appearance was disheveled, his manner disturbingly calm for a father whose child was supposedly missing. When questioned about Maddox's whereabouts, his chilling response, "You're going to want to call homicide," transformed an already tragic situation into something far more sinister. What emerged during his subsequent interrogation was a confession that would haunt even the most seasoned investigators. Ryan described, with unsettling detachment, how he had taken his daughter to a secluded location on that February afternoon. There, in a premeditated act of unfathomable cruelty, he had beaten his own child to death with a baseball bat, the same hands that should have protected her instead becoming instruments of her destruction. But the horror of Ryan's actions didn't end with taking Maddox's life. With the same calculated precision that marked every aspect of his crime, he set about attempting to erase all evidence of his daughter's existence. He constructed a fire pit, placing her tiny body within its confines. For 3 long hours, he watched as the flames consumed her remains, the smoke carrying away the last physical traces of a life he had so callously extinguished. Even this wasn't enough to satisfy his determined effort to cover his tracks. Once the fire had reduced his daughter's body to ashes and fragments, Ryan gathered the remains and placed them in a bag. He had already selected his final destination, a creek in Syracuse where he believed the evidence of his crime would remain hidden forever. With cold efficiency, he tied cinder blocks to the bag, ensuring it would sink to the murky depths, as though he could somehow make his daughter's very existence disappear beneath the water's surface. When investigators pressed him for a motive, Ryan's response exposed a psychological abyss that few could comprehend. He spoke of jealousy, not the kind that might arise between siblings or peers, but a father's jealousy of his own infant daughter. The attention Maddox had received during her courageous battle with cancer, the community's celebration of her survival, the way she had captured hearts with her resilience, all of it had fed a monster of resentment within him. Following Ryan's confession, law enforcement faced the grim task of recovering Maddox's remains from the creek. Divers worked tirelessly, searching the cold waters until they located the bag weighted down by cinder blocks. The discovery provided physical confirmation of the horrific details Ryan had described, though for many involved in the investigation, this verification brought no sense of closure, only deeper horror at the reality of what had transpired. The impact of Maddox's murder reverberated through Syracuse like a shockwave. The community that had once united in support of her cancer battle now came together in shared grief and outrage. People who had never met the Lawrence family found themselves devastated by the loss of this precious child who had already fought so hard to live, only to have her life stolen by the very person meant to cherish and protect her. The legal proceedings that followed would expose every haunting detail of Ryan's actions. The prosecution built an airtight case, bolstered by his own confession and the physical evidence recovered from the creek. The courtroom became a stage where the full tragedy of Maddox's story would unfold, with each revelation drawing gasps and tears from those in attendance. Morgan Lawrence's testimony during the trial provided some of the most heart-wrenching moments in the courtroom.
We just want to know that the both of you are safe. The whole family loves you. The whole family wants you both home.
As she took the stand, the weight of her loss was palpable in every word she spoke. She painted a vivid picture of Maddox's vibrant personality, her incredible strength during cancer treatments, and the boundless joy she brought to everyone around her. Through tears, she described the devastating moment when she realized the man she had trusted with their daughter's life had become the architect of her destruction. Other family members added their voices to the testimony, each account adding another layer to the portrait of loss. Maddox's grandparents spoke of their adoration for their granddaughter, describing sleepless nights haunted by unanswered questions and the permanent void her absence had created in their lives. Their testimony illustrated how the ripples of Ryan's actions had shattered not just an immediate family, but an entire extended network of loved ones. The defense attempted to construct a narrative around Ryan's mental state, arguing that untreated psychological issues and overwhelming stress had contributed to his actions. They portrayed him as a man who had cracked under the pressure of his circumstances, suggesting his feelings of inadequacy and jealousy had spiraled beyond his control. However, the prosecution systematically dismantled this portrayal by highlighting the premeditated nature of his crimes. Evidence presented in court revealed the chilling extent of Ryan's planning. The selection of a secluded location, the preparation of the fire pit, the choice of the creek, and the procurement of cinder blocks, each element spoke to a mind operating with calculated precision rather than emotional impulse. The prosecution argued successfully that these weren't the actions of someone who had simply lost control, but rather of an individual who had methodically planned and executed the murder of his own child. The trial lasted several weeks, but when the time came for deliberation, the jury reached their verdict swiftly. Ryan Lawrence was found guilty of second-degree murder. The sentencing hearing that followed on November 29, 2016, brought the legal proceedings to their conclusion, with the judge imposing a sentence of 25 years to life in state prison. The judge's words during sentencing echoed through the hushed courtroom, each syllable weighted with the gravity of Ryan's actions. "Your deeds were cold, calculated, and beyond comprehension," he declared, addressing the man who had betrayed the most fundamental trust imaginable. "You took an innocent life, a child who had already demonstrated more courage and resilience in her short existence than most will show in a lifetime." The sentence of 25 years to life sparked intense debate within the community and beyond. Many felt it insufficient for the magnitude of the crime, arguing that no punishment could adequately address the horror of a father murdering his own child. Social media platforms erupted with outrage, with countless voices calling for harsher penalties. Legal experts found themselves drawn into public discussions about whether the sentence truly reflected the severity of the crime. Morgan Lawrence's statement to the media following the sentencing captured the complex emotions surrounding the case. Standing before reporters, her composure remarkably intact despite the trauma she had endured, she acknowledged that no prison term could restore what had been lost. "No sentence could ever be enough for what he did," she stated, her voice steady despite the pain evident in her eyes. "But I hope in some way this brings a sense of closure. Maddox deserves to be remembered for the joy she brought, not for how she was taken." The case sparked crucial conversations about mental health within families and the importance of recognizing warning signs before tragedy strikes. Ryan's descent from an ordinary father into someone capable of murdering his own child forced communities to confront uncomfortable truths about the potential dangers lurking within seemingly normal households. In response to Maddox's story, advocacy groups intensified their efforts to raise awareness about child protection and mental health support. Schools and community organizations began implementing workshops focused on emotional health and conflict resolution. The tragedy became a catalyst for change, prompting discussions about how society might better protect its most vulnerable members. The case of Maddox Lawrence continues to resonate far beyond the boundaries of Syracuse, serving as a sobering reminder of how jealousy, when left unchecked, can corrupt even the most sacred of bonds. Behavioral experts studying the case point to Ryan's actions as an extreme example of how untreated psychological issues can escalate into unimaginable violence. The timeline of events reveals a progression that, in hindsight, might have offered opportunities for intervention. Ryan's growing resentment of his daughter's attention, his withdrawal from family life, and his increasingly bitter comments about Maddox's illness were all potential warning signs that went unrecognized until it was too late. What makes this case particularly haunting is the contrast between Maddox's brave fight for life and the cruel way it was taken from her. Here was a child who had faced a devastating cancer diagnosis with remarkable resilience, who had endured treatments that would challenge even an adult's courage, only to fall victim to a darkness that had nothing to do with her illness. The community of Syracuse continues to honor Maddox's memory through various initiatives. Local organizations have established support programs for families dealing with childhood illness, recognizing that such challenges can place immense strain on family dynamics. Annual vigils mark the anniversary of her death, bringing together people who never knew her but were profoundly moved by her story. Among the many tragic elements of this case lies a troubling question about the nature of jealousy itself. How could a father's natural instinct to protect his child become so fundamentally corrupted? Psychologists studying the case suggest that Ryan's jealousy of Maddox represented a severe distortion of normal parental emotions, twisted by his own deep-seated insecurities and inability to cope with feeling overshadowed by his daughter's brave battle with cancer. For those who knew the Lawrence family, the tragedy remains incomprehensible. Friends recall how normal everything appeared on the surface, a young family facing a medical crisis with apparent unity. The facade of normalcy makes Ryan's actions all the more disturbing, suggesting that similar darkness might lurk behind other seemingly ordinary family situations. The case has become a focal point for discussions about parental mental health and the pressures faced by families dealing with serious childhood illness. Support groups have emerged specifically focused on helping parents cope with the emotional challenges of having a child in the spotlight due to medical conditions. The legal aftermath of Maddox's case continues to influence discussions about criminal justice and sentencing in cases involving parental violence. The question of whether traditional sentencing guidelines adequately address crimes of this magnitude remains a point of heated debate among legal scholars and the public alike. Morgan Lawrence's strength throughout the ordeal has been noted by many as extraordinary. Despite experiencing the ultimate betrayal, losing her daughter to the hands of her husband, she maintained her composure through the trial and continues to advocate for increased awareness of mental health issues within families. Her ability to speak about Maddox's memory with focus on joy rather than tragedy serves as a powerful testament to maternal resilience. The case also highlighted how a community's well-meaning support in this instance, their rallying around a child battling cancer, could trigger such a devastating response in someone harboring deep-seated psychological issues. This recognition has led to more nuanced discussions about how to provide community support, while remaining alert to potential negative impacts on family dynamics. Syracuse's law enforcement community still refers to this case during training sessions, using it to illustrate the importance of recognizing subtle warning signs in domestic situations. The calculated nature of Ryan's actions, from the selection of the murder weapon to the disposal of evidence, serves as a chilling reminder that not all family violence erupts spontaneously. The story of Maddox Lawrence forces us to confront uncomfortable truths about human nature and the potential for darkness within family relationships. It challenges our assumptions about parental love being unconditional and unwavering. The fact that a father could become so consumed by jealousy of his own child's survival story that he would orchestrate her murder continues to disturb and perplex. Looking back, we're left with the image of a 21-month-old girl whose brief life touches so many hearts, first through her brave battle against cancer, then through the tragic circumstances of her death. Maddox's story serves as both a warning about the devastating potential of unchecked psychological issues and a call to action for better mental health awareness and support systems within communities. Before you leave, make sure to subscribe to the True Crime Stories archive and click that notification bell to stay updated on more true crime cases that remind us to remain vigilant and aware of the complexities within human relationships. Your support helps us continue sharing these important stories that need to be told. Remember, if you or someone you know is struggling with feelings of jealousy, resentment, or other emotional issues within family relationships, there are resources and professionals available to help. Sometimes the bravest thing we can do is ask for help before darkness takes hold.